In the deepest corridors of the archives, most surviving documents point toward a single figure, a lead analyst named Daniel Mercer. His file is a labyrinth of torn pages and blacked-out paragraphs. Existing fragments indicate a brilliant education in mathematical logic that bordered on obsession. During the Second World War, he served in military signals intelligence, where he learned to hear meaning where others heard only static. By the late 50s, Mercer was recruited into Division 7. His unorthodox approach became the perfect key for what they had uncovered. But after 1968, the records of his life break apart. The chronology becomes impossible. One report claims he perished during a clandestine operation in the Arctic ice. Another suggests he was integrated into the structure of Project Oracle, literally. The strangest part is that reports signed with his name continued to appear for years after his official death date. The activities of Division 7 were not confined to the offices of Langley. Their shadow fell across the entire globe. In Northern Europe, they studied echoes within ancient megaliths and geomagnetic anomalies. In the jungles of Vietnam, they analyzed zones where entire patrols vanished without a single trace. In the Arctic regions, they hunted for signals originating not from space, but from deep beneath the permafrost. On the testing grounds of Nevada, they trialed what Mercer called tools for observing the invisible. Most of these sites were officially listed as modest meteorological stations. Internal memorandums frequently repeat a specific phrase, unstable ontological status. This was bureaucratic code for a reality that had begun to melt. Objects changed shape directly in the hands of researchers. Analysts worked under a constant atmosphere of psychological pressure. Some claimed the very walls had begun to listen. The specifications for Mercer's instruments made no sense to engineers, yet they functioned. They captured what did not exist. In this photograph is one of the few documented manifestations, what they called the tear. The price of knowledge was high. Personnel suffered from memory loss. Men forgot their own names but remembered complex mathematical codes. The division became a state within a state, isolated even from its own leadership. In '65, all resources were poured into Oracle, a computing machine designed to calculate the probability of reality itself. They began transmitting binary code into the void zones of space. The response was not code, it was geometry, shapes that the human eye could not comprehend. Mercer stopped leaving the hall. He became part of the interface. It was then that surveillance cameras recorded the first physical distortions in the computer room itself. Space began to turn inside out. Most records from that year were physically destroyed, burned from the archive, and those who survived began to see outsiders in the corridors, shadows that belonged to no one. In Mercer's final diaries, only one phrase repeats endlessly, "The door is not a door." Project Mirror was supposed to allow them to see the other side, but the mirror shattered. A discharge occurred. At the very moment the instruments recorded success, the people simply vanished, leaving behind empty clothes. Internal security couldn't even begin an investigation. They simply couldn't find the entrance to the headquarters. Mercer's official cause of death was a heart attack, though the body was never released to his kin. Yet his signatures on documents continued to appear in other sectors. Division 7 set out on its final Arctic expedition in search of the black signal. What they pulled from the depths was darker than the night itself. After the return, expedition members became strangers to their own families. The division began to act openly and harshly, taking away civilians who had seen too much. In the Echo Laboratory, they tried to catch the voices of those who had gone beyond. Causality broke. Glasses shattered before they were even touched. 1974, the last communication. Further research poses a threat to the stability of time itself. The order was unequivocal. Burn everything. Erase the very mention of the Oracle program. A tactical team stormed into a void. Hot coffee sat on the desks, and typewriters had not yet cooled. But there was not a single living soul. 90% of Division 7's documentation simply evaporated from the CIA's central vaults. Sometimes in old photos, a man is seen walking into the fog, leaving no reflection. Old technicians still hear voices from empty ventilation shafts. Radio amateurs catch a rhythmic noise resembling the breathing of a machine. Perhaps the Cold War never ended. Perhaps it simply moved to another level of existence. Look at your technology. Are you sure it was created by humans? The last researcher to approach the truth vanished in '98. His office remains a monument to madness or insight. The official response is always the same. This unit never existed. But certain floors in government buildings remain dark and silent. The world is much more fragile than we think. We are merely observers, and Mercer's mask continues to wait for its time. Those who remember know they are still here. Where the archives once were, there is now only emptiness and wind. This folder is closed once again. File 0, status, unstable. But archives have a way of returning. This was only the beginning. Case files, Series B, to be continued.